Zoom recordings. Yep. And admit all, and now you'll be a host. Tony McWhorter, 3 dots. Make host. Yes, people are still coming. So I'll start the introduction, and then so we can get going. All right. Hey everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Hey Kim, good to see you. My old friend Kim. With us today, as you guys have seen from what I've been promoting on the CEO exchange and everything, is Tony McWhorter. One of the things we're trying to do is not only make the CEO exchange is such a great help for everybody. We also want to make it though where we can get some outside information, some outside knowledge, and I'll let Tony give a little bit about his background. But you guys, as the way and Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, paraphrasing is, Tony basically started out as like a unit director, worked his way to a CEO, then went to national, and he's just got wealth and wealth and wealth of knowledge and experience. And I've known him for at least 10 years. But today, Tony's going to talk about finding and keeping talent and telling us that it should be a strategic priority for everyone. And the key to achieving this is by creating the irresistible organization. A key component of that is teaching all of our people managers to become leader coaches. So I will man the waiting room and everything. And Tony, take it away. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Brian. And happy Wednesday, everyone. It's good to see some old faces, some folks that I hadn't seen in a while, and some new folks I'm looking forward to meeting. Kim, I actually saw you the other day when I was doing the Executive Presence Challenge. I could see you in the background. Or I think it was Mercedes was on, and I could see you back there. I was waving, but you didn't wave.
I didn't see it. Sorry. Tish did call me after that call. So good to see you.
But great to see everybody here. I'll just say, today's my birthday. So, if you guys want to sing happy birthday at the end, that will be. How
about just some emojis?
That will work as well.
Celebrating you in spirit.
That would help. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully I think I froze.
It shows you screen sharing. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, and I can see everybody on our screen is moving.
Oh, you're all frozen on mine. There you go. Now everybody's moving again. Fantastic. So Brian and I were talking, and he was generous enough to say, hey, we get folks together and, share a little bit about, what you're doing. And, you know, we talked about what is something that's really going to help this group. And I think it is with the war on talent that we have today and the fiscal cliff, the looming fiscal cliff that's coming, we really need to be the employers of choice if we want to keep and maintain the great people that we have. And so that's what I want to talk to you today. My name's Tony McWhorter. Many of you know me. I have 25 years of experience in the Boys and Girls Club movement. I was a CEO of a small organization in East Tennessee, and then I spent the last 22 years at the national office. The majority of that time was spent in executive leadership development. It was about this time last year, maybe a little later, that I started my own consulting firm called Unlimited Perspectives. The idea is that, you know, we can turn every circumstance into a gift or opportunity. It's just a matter of our perspective and how we look at it. So I've been doing that for a year. I've had the opportunity, I think, to work with a few of you so far, and hopefully my passion and purpose is really helping people and organizations reach their full potential. So Boys and Girls Club's in my blood, and I'm just thankful I still have an opportunity to give back to this movement that I love so much. As Brian said at the beginning, you know, I think now more than ever, every community needs a Boys and Girls Club. And one of the things that we've been saying since I've been in the movement is that in Boys and Girls Club, people make the difference, right? So as I said, we're in a war for talent, and the way that we are going to have a strategic advantage in our communities and be able to drive the outcomes that we want for youth is going to be by making talent a strategic priority. You guys know, I just thank you for what you did during COVID. You and your teams, you stood in the gap, you were essential workers, and you didn't take any time off, and you met everybody at their point of greatest need. And now coming out of that, you know, I think when you talk to employees, they're a little overwhelmed, they're a little weary, not of the work, but in it. And so we have to really consider that if we are going to be and create a meaningful, people-centered work environment that drives engagement, higher levels of performance, and is going to be a magnetic attraction to other people that are looking for work to do. Now, do we as business leaders really understand this? Are we creating a workplace where people are going to thrive? I would say our people love coming to work as much as they love cupcakes, right? If you want to, you know, put a tagline on it. And sadly, in many cases, we're not. And I don't mean people on the screen necessarily, but as a whole, if you look at the data, 79% of businesses say today that they're really worried about engagement and retention. It is number 2 on their list, right behind having the, you know, strong leadership. And 2/3 of them say that an overwhelmed employee is their top challenge. So the sad part is when you look at the Gallup poll, they say that only 13% of our employees are highly engaged at work. So you can see that we have some work to do. So how do we do that? And some of you that have been in Club Directors Academy may have seen this slide, but the way we do that is by creating great places to work. I'm a firm believer that today we have to rehumanize leadership. If we really believe people make the difference, then we have to treat them as talent and not view them as instruments or resources. And you've heard this old saying, and I know you know it's true, is that people don't leave organizations, people leave people. So I was doing some research and saw, you know, was looking at millennials, which will soon make up the majority of the workforce. And 50% of them said that they would take a pay cut to find a job that was aligned with their values, one that, you know, helped them to have work-life harmony. So as I say, when we were developing the Club Directors Academy, we really knew that at the crux of this, it's about leadership. If we want to get to the great experiences and the great workplaces, it is really about leadership. And so there's a book out called, you know, The Leadership Challenge. And we embraced that. And what it really talks about at the crux of it is that great leaders make sure their people have what they need to be successful. They enable them to be their best to succeed. And when they do that, then our kids are going to be the benefits of it. And so some people may say, okay, is it really that important? This idea around employee engagement, right? Is it really critical? And here's some research, right? There's some real data that shows it is, that if you create the right employee engagement and your employees are fully engaged, they feel seen, they feel heard, you're connecting their passion and purpose to the meaningful work that they do, then it's 2 times more likely you're going to hit your financial targets, 2.5 times more likely that your customers, which is the case our kids, are going to have a greater experience. We're 5 times more likely to retain employees. And I think that's big right now, right? We are, working hard to recruit and find the very best people for our kids. And once we find them, we want to retain them. So we're 5 times more likely. It says 5 times more likely to be a great place to work and create a sense of belonging, which we know then drives those outcomes for kids. So how do we do this? And one of the things that I've embraced when I started working with some organizations around this is this idea of creating the irresistible organization, right? And so Josh Burnson, who's been in the human capital work for years and years, has kind of done a lot of research and boiled it down to these elements. These are the things that really help create the irresistible organization. The first is meaningful work, right? And that perhaps is the most important challenge, is to give people good work to do. Now, that's not hard in Boys and Girls Clubs. I mean, we know the great work we do. And if we're doing a good job, when people come in, they understand that this is a profession, right? This isn't about, just making sure, kids don't escape. It is really about youth development. This is a profession. But we have to not only connect their passion and love for kids to the work they do, but we have to give them enough autonomy so that they can be creative and innovate in order to perform well. Studies do show that companies that empower employees not only give them the tools to succeed, but they pay well enough to outperform others who are not able to do that right now. The second is growth opportunities, right? So again, if we look at this as a profession, I would say one of the reasons most people leave companies is because they don't see a lack of opportunity for growth in their role. So, our research shows that organizations that invest more heavily in training and career development outperform their peers and are more likely to retain people. The third thing is, how do you create an inclusive, flexible, fun environment, right? So companies understand that if you show people you care, yes, we have a job to do, but you bring your whole self to work. So how can I create an environment that we talk about wellness? We talk about, how to take care of yourself. We give you the tools to have a great workplace, and people like working together. It's just like with our kids. We know outcomes are increased when they have fun. It's the same way with adults. If we create a fun environment, their performance increases. But I think 2 of the very most important of these are around great management and then having leaders that can be trusted. You guys know, you see it. Management is one of the most important parts of any organization. And the research shows that people thrive through coaching, feedback, and those opportunities to development.
Hey,
So,
Tony,
yes.
could I jump in real fast? Only because, and the only reason I ask is because I don't break the mojo here. Since you have control on this, we've got a lot of people who are, waiting to get in the waiting room, and I can't let them in. I don't see that anymore. So I think maybe because you're host, it doesn't show on my screen invited people. So they've been hitting me a bunch. Yeah, you just saw a whole bunch just enter the thing. So I just wanted to tell you, if you could check that.
Can you make him co-host so we can monitor that for you?
I was trying to, but it didn't allow us to do that earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, I can reclaim host myself, or I can give it all to Tony. My version of this does not allow a co-host, unfortunately. So anyway, didn't want to interrupt.
Right.
You could see we jumped up kind of exponentially on a lot of people waiting to get in. So
Yeah.
I won't interrupt unless I get other messages, or I'll message you, but thank you.
No, I'll keep one eye on it. Thank you. We were talking about people thrive, right, when they get coaching feedback and they can develop. They have opportunities to develop. Long gone are the days where managers can criticize people and demand too much and don't communicate, because it's going to create a stressful environment for our employees, and they're going to leave. And so one of the things that I looked at when I was doing some research, created a program, and maybe in a little bit I may pick on Kim Richards or Jim, because they had some folks in the program, which was becoming a leader coach. Right? I was really working with our people managers to help them understand how important that role is, if in treating people like talent instead of resources. And when I was doing some of the research around it, it was interesting that and when you think about what it means to go from an individual contributor to leading people, many people think that leadership is telling people what to do, right? And some of that's because I got promoted because I was really great at what I did. I was a great individual contributor. And so obviously I need to share that knowledge. But what it really is, right, is, how do you inspire others? How do you treat them with dignity and respect? It's about creating relationships. We cannot get this work done alone. So for the greater good of everybody, our kids, our staff, our community, it's about earning trust. So they want to follow you. And I would say it's personal. As a leader, you have to take it on and help our young leaders, people leaders, understand that you got to be authentic, and it takes intentionality to become better. And
hey, Tony, can we just ask that people put themselves on mute? Michael Boyer, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. So I I started looking at, this slide in terms of, you can see, if you want lasting impact with the talent that we have, it's really more about empowering people through mentoring and coaching. Now, yes, I would say there is, leadership is situational. So you'll see on the bottom, directing, advising, teaching. If somebody's brand new, right, we do have to start with helping them make sure they understand the role, how to do it, and we are a little more direct. But once they understand, they have those skills and that knowledge, it's really about moving toward coaching. That's what's going to have the lasting impact when we're empowering people to solve their own problems, and to continue to grow and get better, and not wait for you to give them the answer. So one of the things that I did when creating the program was to look at how to do this. So I take our new leaders, and one of the things, I would love for you to just put something in the chat, right? Which is, what do you see as the difference between referee and a coach? Just throw whatever you think in the chat. All right, coach wants to see the team succeed. What else? This is the interactive portion, so it wasn't a rhetorical question. Referee is managing crisis. Interesting, I like that, Jim. One helps others learn, one is more penalizing. A referee deals with conflict. Coach looks to the future, good. Coach is proactive, ref is reactive. Great answers. Now, my son is a professional ref, so I have to be careful what I say here, because he gets real sensitive around that role that he plays. But I think many managers see their role as a referee, right? Which is, I'm going to observe, I'm going to watch what you do, and then I'm going to blow the whistle when you break the rules. Now, they do bring a lot of strengths, right? The neutrality, consistency, and fairness. But they may be surprised, right, when people aren't willing to go, the extra mile, run through a brick wall with them. A coach will tell you what you've done wrong, but they're also going to tell you what you did right. And they're consistently going to invest time to show you how to get better, so that you can do that more often. I always say coaches create the conditions for great performance, and referees monitor and action and assess penalties. Both are important and when you're playing the sport, but as a manager and a leader, you have to make things better, and only coaches can do that. And so one of the things I share with the people leaders is that, if you're a great coach, you start to awaken possibilities in people that they don't even see for themselves. You are unlocking their potential. And if you truly respect and value them as people, if you think about it, they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to contribute and be part of something special. And I make sure they understand that, imagination, initiative, passion cannot be commanded. Every day, your staff choose whether they're going to bring those gifts to work or not. And so the more faith and the more value that you show for employees, the more likely they are to bring these gifts every day. Now, this doesn't mean that you overlook poor performance, but rather you really look at it as unused potential. And even if you're right, even if they are performing poorly, it's likely that, you're actually going to inhibit your ability to help them. To believe that the other person is capable of, being great performers, capable of solving their own problems to do that well. So, I just threw this up for people to, see that here's my definition that I use for coaching, right? It's a powerful interpersonal process that stimulates and equips a person to perform at higher levels while accelerating their development. And many people view coaching as a corrective tool, but it is a whole lot more than that. It can be a really effective way of helping your team members explore their goals, their ambitions, and encourage the positive change you're trying to put into your organizations. Coaches' success comes from helping individuals overcome their limiting behaviors and habits that affect their ability to work. So, I make sure that people understand that, if you want to have a positive impact on business, then that means you have to have positive skills, which are, your knowledge, the things that you actually have to do the job, plus positive behaviors equal to positive impact on business. You have to have both. And many times we focus more on the technical skills than we do behaviors. And I always tell people, you get hired for your skills, but you get fired for your behavior. So it's really important that we help people to develop and grow in those areas. And, a great coach will see somebody else as being full of potential. They'll always assume that they're naturally talented, that they're gifted, and they are able to learn and change. And when you approach people that way, they will flourish and they will grow. So, benefits of coaching, you're going to have clear communications, you're going to have greater teamwork, you're going to have people focused on the right things. You're going to have people that are, not only just being busy, they're going to be focused on the right things. Your morale will increase, and managers stop owning what they're not supposed to own. One of the things that, I let them know is you have to delegate and elevate. You have to, yes, hold people accountable, but you can't do other people's work for them. So how do you make sure the expectations are clear and you're holding people accountable to them? So I just share a little infomercial here, which is created a course called Becoming a Leader Coach. I've done it face-to-face with full teams and organizations, or I've done an open program where we get people from all over the country to come in virtually. And basically, we're following this framework here, which is want to help you really understand what it means to be a leader coach and why that's important. Some of the things we talked about today. We use Everything DISC, which really looks at your communication styles and how that impacts and how you relate to other people. Spend a lot of time there. We talk about, understanding your filters and how do you set great expectations, so that you're successful. Many times, they'll do the drive-by expectation, hey, Tony, good to see you. We got something coming up. You got it, right? And wonder why they weren't successful in getting it. We teach a process of how you can not only share the who, what, when, where's, and why, but you get commitment and people are excited and positive, about the task or project they've been assigned. That's going to get you the outcomes you're looking for. And then we really give them a lot of coaching skills that they can start to use, every day in the work that they do. The framework that I put around this, really, that I called coach. You'll see the COAC there, and you have to communicate clearly. You have to be clear. If you want people to go fast, you have to be clear, right? So you got to be concise, keep everybody engaged, and then listen, right, to people. You provide that constructive feedback when they need it, and have real conversations with people. Conversations are two-way, not one-way. You have to be others focused, right? So you have to develop meaningful relationships with people that's based on mutual trust. That doesn't just happen by accident. So you have to have empathy. You have to have humility in how you show people that you care about them. You have to ask great questions. And I think this is one of the things that, they learn the most, is you have to quit telling and start asking great questions. Asking a provoking question is far more valuable than any advice you could give. And it doesn't, it not only shows that, you trust them but you believe they can solve their own problems and find their way forward in it. You have to set clear expectations. Talked about that. It's one of the number one things that we as managers have to do. And we waste a lot of time when we don't do it well. And then we have to be present. You have to be in the here and now. One of the most important things that you can give somebody is your time and attention, right? And so when you do that, and just think about us as a society, we listen to respond. We don't listen to understand. So this really helps. How do I stay centered? How do I stay focused and fully engaged in the conversation and really listen to somebody instead of always giving my opinions? I would love to stop sharing here for a minute. I would love to put Jim or Kim. I'm going to trust that the becoming a leader coach, you put people through it, that it actually was a positive experience and that you're seeing benefits from it. If you would just share a little bit about the experience your employees had in that program, and any change, any benefit you've seen and how they interact with their staff, and how you've seen it impact your organization.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in on this. Thanks, Tony. We had actually a brand new employee. They were just with us for a matter of a week or so, and by engaging them in this work with Tony, it was a game changer for them. Their interaction with new staff. I'll tell you what's really been valuable, Tony. So, being brand new, we put them right into the fire and hiring people, being part of that hiring team. And all the hires weren't perfect, I will tell you that. But going through the program with you gave them the tools to really understand how to communicate with the new staff, how to really engage with them, and they made some tough decisions. They held those tough conversations when they had to be had, and they did have to terminate one of the hires they made, but they did it with grace, and they were always supportive. I would highly recommend it. It gets new staff started out on the right track. And even if they've had leadership development in the past, even if they had that role of a leader, you really bring a great perspective, and it's a reminder for some, I'm sure. But in our case, this was a young, eager, full of fire and ready to rock and roll young employee, but it put him on a great track. So highly recommended.
Thank you, Jim. Jim?
Yeah, sure. So I sent 10 people through it, and they were all site leads and middle managers. And what I felt that was really good for them is the angle that the training or the experience takes is really more of the humanistic side of things. I think what we forget sometimes is that these are young folks oftentimes, or they don't have a lot of experience supervising other people. They don't realize the influence they have over others and the impact that their communication, their words, their, just the style of interaction. I think that this empowers them to understand their role a little different, because in reality, as you move up in the organization, in your leadership, they need to understand it's less about doing, right? And especially to compensate for those who aren't doing. And it's more about that leader is responsible for execution, ensuring the execution of the strategy is happening on a day-to-day basis. And oftentimes I will say I'm totally guilty of this, is that you see a star performer, right, in their role. Oh, they're great with kids and all the staff love them and all that. And we promote them to a role. And you know what? It's not a good fit, or they don't have the skill set they need as a leading people person. And I think that's a huge difference. I mean, you could be good. You said it. This is not about the technical stuff. We can teach the technical stuff, but it's more about the attitudes and beliefs of those leaders. This gives them the foundation that they need, and it allows them to cascade that out so that they can empower their team to believe in themselves and be, I think, more creative. And I like to say, it's creative energy, and they tend to be willing to take more risks. And it also teaches them about the kind of feedback and just the whole concept. And I'll stop in just a sec. I think this is really important, though, is that we are by nature a learning organization. We're trying to set our kids up to be lifelong learners, and we forget to invest and create that environment for our team. And once they start to realize that, it's not looking for proof points that someone's doing their job wrong. They're looking for proof points that they're doing it right, and they have the capacity to do more.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that so much. So the work that I've been doing with organizations around this is everything from strategic to more tactical. So I'm amazed a little bit. A lot of these new leaders, a lot of the basic foundational things of how do you create an inspired shared vision? How do you make sure everybody understands what that is and what their role is in it? That they set, here's the expectations for your job, and here's clear goals, and we're monitoring those. We have a scorecard. We're looking at it on a regular basis and talking about how we need to get better. That's the traction needed to really drive outcomes. So sometimes it is spending more time with some of the basics of whether it's, delegating, holding people accountable, dealing with conflict, or just, performance management. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes and it starts with the leadership team. So you have to have a really strong, healthy, cohesive leadership team. So I've been doing a lot of communication and team effectiveness work. And I use everything DISC as the basis for that. But really everybody then understands here's our communication style. This is how it can be seen and perceived by the other styles. And it's really a great reference tool of if I want to communicate better with Brian, and I know what his style is, it gives me practical tips that I can try that's going to help improve that communication. And I've seen team effectiveness go up. And then it's been, some organizations are starting to say, well, we really, when you define the employee experience, it's a little different for every organization. So let's actually come in. Let's have a conversation with our people. Let's talk about how we're doing, how connected do they feel to their job? Do they see passion and purpose in it? And everything down to processes and procedures to really understand what is it that we can do as an organization to continue to grow, that's going to engage our employees, going to keep them and drive what we're, the outcomes we're looking for. And to me, that is critical, crucial work. If I think Brian said at the beginning, I would hope that you would see that having great talent is a strategic differentiator for you. Many people are starting to put that in their strategic plan. Talent is right up front, right? Because they realize if we're serious about driving outcomes, it's all about people. And so what I do is come in and work with organizations to help assess what that looks like in your organization, put a customized, strategy in place, and it's going to really drive the outcomes that you're looking for. So I've worked with some of you on the screen. I'm working with some of your people right now. I think Robbie's got some folks in the Executive Presence Challenge that we're doing. But where I see the gap, the biggest opportunity, because, I'm not trying to compete with BGCA, what they provide. I want to complement it and see where the gaps are. And I think people managers are the most important. They're critical to maintaining our staff. And then the gap I see is really in our, what I would call executive management group, right? The opportunity is, how do we really, help them to be the coach of a coach and to position them to one day, and be in the succession plan to fill our leadership roles one day in the future. And so that's where I've been spending most of my time, and really have enjoyed getting back and working closer to clubs. But we have some time. I'd love to hear from you guys a little bit. What are some of the talent challenges that you're seeing? And maybe some folks on the screens have done some things to help, in those areas, or, maybe I can talk about some of the success that I've seen with other organizations. But what are you guys seeing in this area of talent?
Hey, Tony, it's Robbie. First of all, thanks for popping onto here. Appreciate it.
My
Great
pleasure.
always seeing you, man. I will tell you one thing we've just done over the past, just recently. We've lost a lot of teams across the state of Georgia, and I know we've lost teams across the country. So our focus was, we need to invest in our team directors. And in October, we hosted a thing in Atlanta for team directors in the state of Georgia. Everybody got to send one. We had about 30 some odd team directors who showed up. We eventually rolled that into, last week we hosted a team professional summit. And it was really interesting to hear. Literally asked one question, and there was one answer, and everybody agreed. I said, what can we do as clubs to help the team professional? One guy raised his hand and stood up, and he said, I want to be recognized as a professional and not just somebody who works with kids. And the room went quiet. And I think that's really the thing, as Tony, as we grow and as an organization and readjust to some things, is we've got to start treating our staff as professionals and not people who just help kids. We've got to start offering them opportunities like what you're doing to help better themselves and get better. We've lost opportunities through, we cut out so many conferences that we were able to grow over the past, in the history. We cut out youth development conferences, we cut out other stuff. And so we've basically put our professional staff on the back burner saying, okay, hey, do this online training, you'll be good. No, you won't. And so getting out and getting our staff trained and this is what I told our this group about. I said, listen, I want to train leaders. If we can train people to be leaders, I can put them anywhere, but we got to help them be leaders and grow in that aspect and continue to build on them, because if not, we're going to be fighting this battle for a long time. So I appreciate you reaching out to us and pouring into us today.
No, I thank you for that. And I saw Kim giving snaps. I agree. And that's what I love about helping them understand that, as a leader, you have to coach, right? let's use playing tennis as an example, right? I can buy all the equipment. I can watch videos online. I can go to a training where like this, where somebody tells me, here's what a backhand is, here's a forehand, here's what it looks like. Until I'm playing the game and I have a ball being served at me 90 miles an hour and I have to figure out how I deal with it, then I'm not in the game. I'm just learning it. And when you see your staff in the game and you have an opportunity to give them feedback to help them perform at a higher level, it starts out with, well, maybe you should, hold your racket this way and technical, but then it soon becomes and changes to, where would you play this ball? What would be your strategy? Where would you go after that? Those are the conversations that we don't have because we get so busy and it's just, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do. Hey, do this, go do it. And we think we're saving time, but we're really not, because everybody's coming to us with their problems. If we can really empower our leaders and help them to coach others, then it in the long run, it will save us time and the whole organization benefits. So I appreciate that. That's what you're seeing as well with your team directors. Kim, I think you came off. I saw you were going to say something.
Well, I have a question, but I also want to just take this opportunity to make another plug. For those of you who are looking for support for your executive leaders, Boys and Girls Clubs of America does have a coaching program, and I'm sure that there's several people on here that are part of that, but that's available. Yeah, Michael, Jim, I am. So the whole point is it's designed not only for CEOs, but also think of your executive leaders, think about succession planning, think about, just giving your folks safe space, right? To work on anything from leadership, overcoming challenges, charting a path for their career. I just think it's a resource that hasn't been talked about a lot, but you'll start to hear more about it here in this year. That's one plug I wanted to put in there. And then the other thing is one of the things that I've noticed is for the last 3 years, we've put a lot of time and resources in creating an optimal employee experience, because there weren't a lot of people that wanted to work. And so we're trying to, we're investing in employee assistance programs and bonuses and, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so there's also been, nobody knows where the bar should be because nobody has lived through a pandemic before. We don't know what to expect. And so the accountability piece has been a little wonky. You know what I mean? And so I'm wondering if you're hearing this in the folks that you're working with, how do you shift from this, like, think outside the box, let's focus on what is possible rather than knowing what's possible, because we didn't know what was possible. And now it's like, we got to come back. And some of these people who joined you during COVID don't understand the concept of accountability, personal accountability. And I'm wondering, how's that playing out in the work that you're doing? And do you have any advice?
Yeah, so great question. Definitely seeing that, right? And I think it's tied to two things that go hand in hand. First is, do people understand how to set really great expectations, right? And I don't mean just telling somebody what to do, but doing it in a way where that person is excited and motivated and see the project, the task, the opportunity as a positive thing. And it can happen. Most people, when the accountability is not there, there's a couple things that are driving it. One is they really don't know what's expected of them. You'd be surprised how many coaches, people I'm coaching, my clients, and that's one of the first things I ask them is, do you know what your leader, what your manager expects of you? And I'm surprised how many say no, and they're really kind of embarrassed sometimes to ask. So I was like, how do you know you're successful? How do you know you're working on the right thing? So I think it starts with making sure you're really clear about what it is you want them to do and how you communicate that, right? And I coach people through a process to do that. But in accountability, then if they understand, then as leaders, you start to think about, who are you accountable to? Who are you accountable for? And many times we all know, you'll say, I could probably ask each of you right now, think about, do you have a go-to person? Like if you need something done, you got a person that will get it done. And most people are like, yes. And that person probably gets a large share of the opportunities that come. We don't take the time to really look at, okay, why am I not spreading that around enough? If I'm not holding Tony accountable, how do I view Tony in terms of, the importance of that relationship, and how much energy do I have to, spend? Because some people are just, Tony may be more difficult than somebody else. And so I'm not holding myself accountable to work with them because I don't want to deal with that. Or sometimes, I'm not holding myself accountable or them, either one. Things that get in the way of personally with people are, they fear, there may be a fear of success, fear of failure. You have to help people understand what that is and how to lean into it. People get in their comfort zone. So right now, a lot of our staff, have been going at it hard for a long time. And we've got to get back to that balance where there's one, if you think of it sitting in a saddle, right? You got one foot in delivery and you got one foot in discovery. If you put too much weight on any one side, you may fall off the horse, but you have to do both. And we've, been really heavy one or the other for such a long time. It's helping people understand and get back to that balance. And then it's, just blame. I talk, if a lot of times that we don't hold ourselves accountable because we're blaming somebody else for whatever's going on in my life. And just try to help people understand, if you're pointing a finger at somebody, you got three back at you. So it should just be a warning light on your dash. If you see yourself blaming somebody, to just check and say, what role did I play in that? But more importantly is, how do I navigate around and through this? I have to keep moving forward. I can't get stuck with the negative self-talk in my head. So I think innovation is something that's always going to be a big part of our work. We're not going back to everything the way it was before. So I do think we have to continue to look at the environment and help our folks think through what are those opportunities. But at the same time, we have to deliver. We have to execute on what we have. And so I think those two things, if you set the right expectation and you really try to dig in and understand what might be blocking the accountability here, then you can put a strategy in place to overcome it. But I don't think we think about that enough. That's a great point, Kim. And truthfully, that's what a coach helps you do. That's why I love BGCA is starting to invest more in executive coaching. That's, a pretty big part of my business, and it makes a difference. Everybody needs a coach. It's not just, LeBron James as a coach, Tiger Woods has, all the greats have a coach. It just helps you continue to rise and go to the next level wherever you're at. It's not just for folks that, need help, or, this is kind of like the last thing we're going to do before we make a decision. Coaching should be a part of how you help people become and reach their full potential as leaders. And so I love that BGCA is starting to make that investment, especially with our management, our executive managers, right?
Brian asked a question in the chat. Can you see it?
Do you have suggestions for working with staff who are not fully invested? So he says 70% of his staff are college, so I assume they're part-time. And he loses half of them every semester. So there's a lot, retraining, reskilling that has to be done there. What would be top ways to engage them, or top 3 things to focus on that you would call short-term employees? So I've got some ideas. I'll open it up to the group first. What are you all have, I think when you look at the movement as a whole, majority of our staff are part-time. I know a lot of organizations are trying to move to having only full-time employees because of this, but and especially when we're not able to be like the top salary that folks are going to get necessarily in the communities, we've got to find other ways to engage and motivate them. So what are some things you guys have done? And then I'll share what I'm thinking and seeing.
professional development. I mean, I know that it's a lot of work, but we spend a lot of times trying to, I mean, I even have an assessment that we do where you rank what your values are, and then how you are living your values, right? And trying to understand what's important to them, and then what are some opportunities to give them that, align to that. Like, so if it's somebody that's studying, physiology, hey, would you be interested in doing a training for, all the elementary school kids on this? I mean, it's not an answer to your problem, but I mean, I do think that if we spend a little time in even exploring what their hobbies are, because a lot of times they have hobbies that we don't know about. They're musicians, they're whatever, they're artists, and they would love to do a workshop, and also, having them go to see other sites or take their skill and, switching them from different sites. But that's a tough one. I deal with that as well. So I'm interested in the answer.
Anybody else? What do you guys? Well, I do love the ongoing development piece, because here's how I think we can approach it. First off is making sure it starts with hiring. It starts with the hiring. We got to make it the right hire, right? And a lot of times people don't understand that youth development is a profession. And so when they come, they say, well, I like working with kids. And when they get there, they find out that, well, wait a minute, this is a lot more than just refereeing a basketball game. We're talking about, real youth development, how you build skills in kids so I think they can be successful way into the future. And so I think at hiring, you start by helping them understand, here's what we're doing for kids. Here's why it's so important. And your role in it is, and this is a profession. Now, I say that not everybody may want to go into youth development, but if you're providing ongoing development for them, you can tell them, we're going to develop real skills in you that can transfer into any job that you do outside of this. So we may not always be able to pay the most, but if we can show them we're going to develop real transferable skills, that, is going to make a huge difference. And then, like I said, the cultural fit at the beginning, just make, you're hiring people and that share your values of your organization, that understand how important, it is, what you're doing for kids and community, that this is an important job, important role. And then the other thing is the wellness opportunities where, it may be, here's an outing that we're doing, just to make sure we're staying, it's social and collegial. Here's some things you can do for your health. A lot of times we may not be paid, but maybe it's a half day off, or maybe it's, these kinds of different things. Those are really important to this new, the latest generation that's in the workforce, is that, their well-being, and that, they're treated and seen as a whole person when they come to work is important. And then the last thing I would say is, once you do the cultural fit, then find out what their passion and purpose is in that interview process. If you understand what their big passion is, the big capital P, then you can connect that to the work they're doing, and you can help them see that this is meaningful work and it's aligned with the passion that you already have. And once you make that connection, then they're motivated. They have a lot greater sense of, not only am I doing something good, but it's feeding them, what's important to their soul. And, if you can do that up front, it'll save you a lot of heartaches down the road.
Hey, Tony, one thing that you said that really strikes me, and that is, you kept mentioning the people and connection. And in reality, we don't focus a lot as much on creating a sense of belonging with our staff that we do with kids. And really, that's what inclusion is about, right? And so one of the things that, we started to try and focus on is creating and being really intentional about providing opportunities where people could make those connections, where there were, genuine common interests, or, socialization, cross-pollination, those kinds of things. Because people, have a very difficult time leaving. And it's amazing what they try and do with their schedules when they really care about the people that they work with, right? And really enjoy their work.
Right.
They'll say, oh, I can take that course in the summer or whatever. I'm not saying that all of them would do that, but I think it's so important, and I forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like I say with this generation coming up, which, you know, if most of our folks are part-time in their college, I mean, we're definitely a multi-generational workforce, but that's a lot of our part-time employees. So those are great answers, great suggestions.
Well, one of the things that we see also, Tony, and this is where it gets in the past, you know, when I worked at the other club, we had the availability of, hey, we don't have that much money. We're a nonprofit and we're helping save the world. You know, that's kind of going away, where we have to do a little bit more on the pay. I mean, you know, they can go to McDonald's or Starbucks and make, you know, $5 more dropping fries. And I can go, yeah, but it's boring and you're dropping fries. You're not saving the world. You're not helping kids. You're not inspiring. And unfortunately, that's kind of lost its weight, even though I think we've all heard from all these Gen X, Gen Y, what letter are we on? Double Z, whatever group we're on. You know, that they want to, like, you know, I think both Tony, you and Kim both said this earlier, that they, you know, one of their hopes is to help change the world, and they'll get involved in stuff that they want to get involved with. But still, what I'm starting to find too, and this makes it harder, again, being a nonprofit, is the money. I mean, even if we're talking $1, $2 an hour, you know what I mean? So that's the other thing that we're navigating, because I'll get some of my employees from Austin College going, I mean, we pay them, we're going like $13 an hour. Somebody's like, well, I have a second job at a Montessori school and they're paying $14 an hour. And I was like, it's $1 here. How about I give you $52 and leave me alone? You know, I'll cover you for the year, kind of thing, out of my pocket. So that's the other part I think we have to get to, though. We still have to be competitive. And that's where I'm struggling, because I do a lot of stuff, Kim, that you mentioned. You know, we do, hey, take a day off. If you need a break, we'll find a sub. Tell us in advance. You know, don't tell me 3 minutes before your shift starts that I need a break, because then I'm out of ratio and it's dangerous for the kids. But we've got to find a way to give them stuff, whether it's, you know, like one of our interview questions is, what's your favorite kind of candy? We try to have a Milky Way for you. Tony, your favorite candy is a Milky Way. I'm gonna have a Milky Way for you. You know what I mean? Something like that. So anyway, for us, that's the biggest problem is the retention, but it's in a different way, because, you know, a lot of what is very relevant to the full-timers, part-timers are where we're struggling a little bit. So.
Well, I know we're approaching the end of the top of the hour, but I have really enjoyed spending time with you. I know what you do every day. I know how rewarding, but also how difficult and challenging the work can be. And so thank you for what you do on behalf of kids. I tell CEOs, board members all the time, you know, you may not know this side of heaven, the difference you're making, but it is tremendous and it is huge. So thank you for what you do every day. And if there's ever anything that I can do that, you know, can come in and partner and help you do in your organization to get stronger and have even greater impact, I would love the opportunity to discuss that with you. My company, we do everything from strategic planning, board development, change leadership, but the majority of what we do is, you know, leadership development, executive coaching, team development. And so if there's anything we can do, what I'll do is I'll send to Brian. I'm going to send, you know, here's Tony and his portfolio services. I'll send a PDF of this presentation just so you guys have it if you want to see some of the data there as you talk to your board members and others about it. And I'm going to send an organizational checkup assessment. It's really around the basics of, do you have a mission, vision statement? Does everybody understand it? Are you, you know, do you have goals? Are you running effective meetings? The things that, you know, we take for granted, especially, you know, coming out of COVID, a lot of that, as we were just going all the time and on the fly, is now the things I think we need to get back to if we really want to have traction in our organizations. You know, say if you have a vision, but you don't have all these other things in place, you know, vision without traction is a hallucination. So we really want, this helps to see what you can do to have greater traction in your organization. So please give me a call. Love to work with you. It's good seeing a lot of you again. And for those that I haven't met yet, I look forward to meeting you one day in person.
Well, thank you,
And thank
Tony.
you,
We had a
Brian,
good,
for setting it up.
and happy birthday. Happy birthday. But thank you for being here. And yeah, I'll get all the materials, folks, and I'll get it on the exchange, or I'll put it in the new Google share box, kind of Dropbox thingy mabobber. So anyway, thank you.
Oh,
all.
I think you should, I think you
Technical
should, yeah, I think you should make people like, have to be here to get those materials.
I
No,
like
just
that.
Actually, no, here's what we do, Kim. Well, I'll
Like
take
they gotta help themselves.
No, you're not. Yeah, there you go.
no, take the materials, and we'll like every fourth word will like white it out. Let them figure that out. Make them work for it a little bit. Then but if you're here, you get the full material. Well, anyway,
It was
thank
really
you,
nice
Tony.
of you to do, Brian, and thank
Oh,
you,
good
Tony,
job.
for spending your time.
Anytime. Thank you,
thank
Yeah,
Tony.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So good to see your faces. Hey, Lori.
Hi,
All right,
guys.
take care.
Thank you. Brian, it's just so nice to see you. I don't want to drop off, even though you're wearing a ridiculous orange shirt.
I love it.
Hey,
Dude, that's
I
what
kinda
I would
like
tell
that.
somebody, pay me like, that's it. I already got that from Robbie, that I was doing the UT thing.
Is Robbie in Texas?
No, Robbie, when I first got hired, he was in Tyler when I was in Marshall, which is about an hour apart, but now he's in Georgia. He's in like, his northwest Georgia, I believe is where he-
Okay.
isn't that right?
But he's a big Tennessee fan.
Yeah, he's huge.
He
Tennessee
is.
fan, huge. Tennessee.
Not Texas, the
Yeah.
real UT.
That's exactly what he said. to me.
Wow.
He said, "Thank you, Brian, for representing UT." Hey, Tony, what is your kid? Coach when you're saying that he
Soccer. He
referees?
refs soccer.
Gotcha.
So he's doing MLS.
Oh, is he really?
Oh,
the
wow.
two, they've started their own league now.
Yeah.
And so